we've got a special guest, and he's here to talk about how his team did this year. It's report card time.
Welcome back to First and Short, ladies and gentlemen. This is your first place to get short bits of college football news and analysis. I'm joined by my co-host Aaron, and like he said, we have a special guest with us. His name is Steven. Steven, me and him, we go back a long ways, and he'll tell us what team he's a part of in just a moment. But before we get started with all that, just want to plug our show, ask you guys to subscribe, follow us on all the socials, continue to follow us as we go through this off season. We've got a lot to talk about throughout the whole year, all the teams that, how they did the last season and what we're looking forward to for the next season. So on today's agenda, we're going to talk about some transfer portal stuff, and then we're going to get into those report cards. But, before we do all that, Steven, why don't you take the floor? Show us what logo you got on your shirt, man.
I showed it a little bit while you guys were talking, but in case folks
Yes,
are wondering
sir.
what team I represent, it is the Georgia Tech. But yeah, no, pleasure for me, pleasure to be on this. I've been kind of, waiting for that bat signal to be shown in the sky for me to join this lovely podcast. But yeah, no, I was happy to be here. Big college football guy, more importantly, big Georgia Tech guy. So excited to see what you guys have in store in terms of how you're grading my illustrious team.
Absolutely, for sure. I'd like to ask this question. We're in the off season right now. What are you doing to bridge you from 2025 season to 2026 season?
I'll be honest. A lot of well, the NFL is still going on, and even my NFL team, the Falcons, aren't in the in in the playoffs. You know, just watching football in general keeps me occupied. But in
Nice.
terms of like college stuff, I'm always keeping my ears to the ground because, as you guys know, the college football season just ended recently. So with all the transfer portal stuff, which again I know we're going to get into that,
Yep.
I'm always and have been following just to see who we're getting, Georgia Tech that is, and then who's like leaving, premier schools, such as the Alabamas, the Georgias, and things of that sort. So those two things keep me occupied in the sports realm.
Yeah. Season never really truly ends, does it?
No, it does not.
Um, Sounds good. Sounds good. So, Aaron, Steven, let's get into what we've got on deck for today. So, I think the big story we can start with Darian Mensah. He's taken his talents down to South Beach. So, on the 27th, a couple days ago, it was announced that Darian Mensah, he had a private settlement with Duke, the team that was holding him hostage, and now it's cleared a path for him for the star quarterback to join the Hurricanes. He's taken one of his favorite wide receiver targets with him, Cooper Barkate, and now Miami has the 10th transfer portal class. They've jumped after that addition, and they've got about 30 students joining the Hurricanes. So my question to the floor to you guys, what side are you on? Like, did Duke do the right thing? Are you like totally for players' rights? Did Darian, hold his own? What do you guys think? I'll let Aaron go first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this kind of speaks to the mantra of what college football is right now, right? It's power to the players. I feel like we're seeing, in a way, justice balancing itself out because for generations, for years, we've seen players like Tim Tebow, all these college phenoms not make a single dollar off of themselves. And so now, I mean, of course, there's going to be a balancing where they, things get back in control, but we're just seeing players take full advantage of them being able to make, money off of their name, image, and likeness.
Steven, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's I agree with everything that Aaron says. When it comes to this day and age with the transfer portal and just college football, like nobody has the luxury of keeping players, you know, on their team, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
years of and I'm sure there probably still a few out there that are loyal, quote unquote. I use air quotes for loyal. Those days are truly gone. But in terms of just like my thoughts on like which side, I'm actually very torn.
Right.
On one end, I do, you know, like the fact that players have the right to go out and take care of themselves and their families. But on the same end, it's like, there has to be rules and guardrails, put it that way,
Yeah.
around
Yep.
how teams interact with folks that are in certain colleges, right? Like,
Right.
when you look at the Miami and Duke situation, yes, Miami was in the championship, and I'm pretty sure there are rules that extend their transfer portal abilities, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I also think that Darren Mensa, like, if he truly wanted to go there, you should let that be known. So it's
Hmm.
always that, like, hey, did Miami tamper?
Oh, of course
After
they
the
did.
fact, I'm sure that,
Mhm.
now that the portal's closed, there were folks who made, or players who made decisions not to not to transfer
Enter.
because they said,
Yeah.
hey, we have a, you know, I think he's pretty much like the top quarterback. Now that Haynes King has left, has graduated from Georgia Tech, but he's the top quarterback in the ACC. So folks made decisions based off of that. The school poured in money because of that, and now, like, yes, I know they settled, but it screws a lot of people over, because now not Miami, now Duke can't go into the portal and go get somebody because they thought they had the guy that they were, under contract with. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm torn.
Mhm.
I kind of, I'm gonna just say I support both sides. But like, the fact that they settled, I'm hoping that they can use that money and make something shape, just not against my
Yeah.
team.
Yep.
Really
Nice.
fair.
Yeah, it sucks that it's a private settlement. We won't really. I mean, we can probably find some rumors or something out there. But I was hoping to see Duke try to squeeze this a little bit more. Like we all talked about guardrails and stuff. Money is the ultimate guardrail, right? That's what's going to cause people to think twice about doing stuff like this. Now, to be fair, Darian Mensah did enter the transfer portal within like the deadline that was put on him, but he gave his word to the school, like, I will be here. You guys are paying me a lot of money. I will be here. And then obviously there was some tampering going on if he just suddenly enters on the last day and then knows exactly where he wants to go, right? But at the end of the day, who's holding Miami accountable? Nobody. Now the reports did say Miami had to pay some type of buyout or something like that, but clearly that's not even a factor for them. Speaking of Miami, next question I wanted to ask: will Darian Mensah be able to replicate Miami's success from this season? Malachi Tony will be there. Mark Fletcher announced that he will be there. So Stephen, I'll start with you this time. Do you think Darian Mensah has the capabilities to be the addition to Carson Beck that they weren't they only got so far this year? Will they be able to get to the next level, which is there's not too many steps of the ladder left, but
Yeah,
will
no, I
they be
mean,
able?
like, to answer the question, yes. Uh, I'm actually going to agree. I'm not, by any means a Miami fan, but if you look at just the past 3 years, they've been able to get, and I use the word marquee very loosely because I'm not a big Carson Beck guy. But
Sure.
they've been able to land three marquee portal quarterbacks, in a row. Mensa,
Yeah.
before that was Carson Beck, and before that was Cam Ward.
Yep.
And if you look at, just statistically, the guys that have come in have performed well. I mean, granted, Carson Beck didn't win, but like, I think his numbers, you can fact check me here, but I think his numbers here were good.
Yeah,
So
they were
like,
good.
given that I think that, Mensa's a better quarterback than Beck, and given that, they're gonna have the Tony and their running back, and I think
Fletcher.
even like
Yeah.
there's some members
Yep.
of their defensive line, Ruben Bain, like, they are gonna be coming back. I do think that he has what it takes. You surround them with the talent they already have,
Mhm.
and given their schedule, I think they'll make something shake in ACC. I think they just got to get the toughest team they probably have to play, and I know they haven't released the preseason like rankings, but from
Yeah.
what I've saw, it's probably going to be like Notre Dame. Um,
Yeah.
and given they already beat them last year, it's that would be the game that I circle on my calendar.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good points, good points. One thing that I think is going to be to his advantage is going to be, he's transferring from one ACC school to another. So a lot of the competition he's already seen. He's just
Yeah.
working with a new offense, which quite frankly might be more athletic and better for surrounding, around him. So we might see a stronger Darian Mensah this year, to be honest.
Yeah, less reliant on him to be an athlete, but more of a game manager, but be an athlete when they need him to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, Ruben Bain, he is going to the NFL, but they did get Damon Wilson, so not a one
Yeah.
for one translation, but defensive line will still be pretty good. But I agree with all those points. I think Miami, they've got the right formula right now to make a lot of motion. Hey, shout out to who's the guy? The Apple Isaac Newton. Object in motion stays in motion. You feel me? Um, so Miami will be good there. Let's get into some report cards. We're gonna start with Ohio State. Aaron, why don't you start us off? How did the 2025 Ohio State Buckeyes do this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at just the regular season, I mean, it was a masterclass, right? It was dominance followed by, sadly, a postseason heartbreak. Ryan Day, I feel like in a regular season, he did what he had to do. He finally silenced the Michigan critics, finally broke that streak of embarrassment. And then when they got into conference play in December and January, they hit a wall, right? Um, it left fans wondering if the offensive line will ever catch up to the talent at the skill positions, and if they're, I don't know, ever going to get to that promised land again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll start like our typical report cards with the expected record versus the actual record. Obviously, the year before they won the national title with 2 losses, but this year most sports books and analysts they projected about a 10 regular season. 10 wins during the regular season, excuse me, and then a playoff berth. They went 12-2. So they went 12-0 in the regular season. And then that was the first time since 2019 that they were able to do that. And then they had an 0-2 slide. They lost against Indiana in the Big Ten championship, and then they lost against Miami in the CFP quarterfinal. So we, obviously 12-0 will get you an A+ around here, but with that 0-2 slide near the end, we kind of put them in the A- range. Steven, what do you think? You okay with that grade there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with the grade for Ohio State. I think when you get your quarterback that was a Heisman finalist back, you have Jeremiah Smith. You add their running game. Like you cannot give them the grade that that was given. My only And again, keep in mind that, like I stated earlier, I am a Atlanta Falcons fan. So
Sure.
take what I say right now with a grain of salt. But Ohio State bringing Arthur Smith doesn't, as an offensive coordinator, doesn't. I think he was replacing uh,
Heartline.
Hartline, yeah, who's like I think
Yeah.
he's the head coach now
We're
for
we're gonna
USF.
get into the coaching in a little bit. I was just asking specifically on the record. Would you
Oh,
would you
on the record,
agree on
yes,
the
then
yeah,
yes, I would totally agree. But yeah,
gotcha.
I have some things to say about the
But
coaching. But
I want to hear it. Let's Aaron hear about coaching first. Let's hear about that grade, and then we'll hear all about Arthur Smith.
Sure, sure. So let's start with the head coach first, right? So Ryan Day, he deserves some massive credit, right? He snapped the losing streak against Michigan, like I mentioned earlier. Dominant regular season finale. Um, of course, you had the slip up at the end, but I don't want to ding him too much because those last 2 losses were against people who made it to the national championship. So can you really ding somebody who's maybe the third best
Third
team,
place.
arguably?
Yeah.
You know, coordinators, Matt Patricia, we talked about him all year. Number one scoring defense, number one defense in the nation. Like inevitably, probably one of the best defensive coaches I've seen this year. And then Steven, you alluded to Brian Hartline, right? I don't know what school did he end up going to?
USF,
South Florida. Yeah.
South
yeah.
Florida. Okay, so yeah, he's gonna make some noise down there. Maybe it's gonna have to build up a little bit down there as they're a program that's elevating, but they still got to take that next step to be an elite program. But overall, with what we saw this year, offense we saw them struggle from time to time, but with the defense was just lights out. We're gonna give them a B+. How do you feel? I guess from our grading and what we talked about, Stephen, from their coaching standpoint.
I agree because again, when you have Matt Patricia,
Mhm.
you can't argue. You're returning the what he was doing, the way he programmed his defense to be the juggernaut that they were all, virtually all season. That in itself, gives you know gives them that B plus. I would only take away the plus and a minus only because of, as I alluded earlier, Arthur Smith, right? Like, uh, you know, the one thing he is known for is running the ball. He's a very um, run heavy offensive
Scheme.
coordinator.
Yeah.
Even when he was in Atlanta, he's the one that the reason why we have Bijan Robinson. You translate it over to his offensive coordinator roles in with Pittsburgh, they ran the ball a lot, like almost too much. They were in two tight end sets, and they would just run. Say, hey, my guys are bigger and stronger than you. We're gonna run the ball. Run the ball down. Now, while
Mhm.
that's good, yeah, Jeremiah Smith, who like to me at least is still the best wide
Yeah.
receiver. Like I would, I'll bet my money on him being the number one pick coming out next year. But now that you have Arthur Smith, I'm like, what does that do to Jeremiah Smith? So
Mhm.
it's hard to give them anything less than a B. So I would only
You think
flip
a
the
lot you
plus
think a
to a
lot of
minus.
you think a lot of screens and end arounds for Jeremiah Smith this year?
Look, that's what I mean. Look at DK's numbers. Look at wide receivers' numbers before and after Arthur Smith. So it's just
Mm.
the run games and the tight ends are going to see a lot. And I think what they have what who is Bo Jackson still coming still with the
Yeah, he should be, yeah. The
Yeah,
running back,
yeah.
right?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
Bojack,
I
yeah.
mean, Bo Jackson, he'll eat a lot. He'll
Yeah.
get probably like 1,200 plus receiving yards, and some no name tight end is gonna get all the touchdowns. So,
Nice.
I hope Jeremiah Smith is good at blocking because that's what his future is gonna look like.
Gotcha. All right, yeah, let's perfect segue into offense and defense. We gave an A minus here. Offense, it left a little left to be yet to be desired. On paper, they were explosive. Obviously, they have Jeremiah Smith, one of the best players in the country, if not the best offensive weapon. Now, they averaged 33.4 points per game. The unit, the offense as a whole, the offensive line was an issue, and that really reared its head near the end of the season, but especially in the playoffs. The entire offense kind of vanished because of the holes in the offensive line. They only scored 10 points in the Big Ten game and 14 in the Cotton Bowl. So that's going to bring their average down, I believe. And then their defense, I mean, A plus, like you said, Aaron, best scoring defense in the country. They only allowed 9.3 points per game. They held every regular season opponent to 16 points or less. Has not been done since 1975. So that's an A minus there. I think we'll move forward into the best wins and worst losses. So Aaron, why don't you uh, kind of give us a highlight and low light of the Ohio State season from 2025?
Yeah, yeah. So they're gonna get a B plus from here, for this category from us. I think best win, undoubtedly the breaking the streak with Michigan. Playing the game and Ryan Day breaking that curse. The worst loss, it's gonna have to be that Big Ten championship. They they came in losing to a Cinderella Indiana team. While the offense, looks completely stagnant, and it was a gut punch that killed their momentum heading into the playoffs. So yeah, they get a B plus there. Steven, I know you're a Georgia Tech fan. You watch a lot of ball in the South. How many games, I guess, did you watch this year? Since Ohio State's so far up north, they're on a totally different TV program. I mean, did you catch many of those here?
No, my Saturdays, especially during uh the collegiate football season, was spent just something was always on.
Yeah.
And we have YouTube TV, you can put on multiple games at the same time. So I'm one of those guys that have like at least any given Saturday or Sunday, I'm gonna have 4 games on. So I did catch a good bit of Ohio State
I
games.
wouldn't blame you for not watching. They had a pretty bad schedule this year, Ohio State. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't watch many.
No, I mean it was on, right? Like
Yeah.
when they played um
They played
Penn
Texas
State.
week one. That was a good. Oh, Penn State. That was a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they played Penn State, I wanted to watch that game only because Penn State had fired their coach. I was like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay, what is Penn State gonna do coming out the gates? And they came out the gates like the first like quarter, it looked fine, and then it's like, hey, we're Ohio State.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Flex that muscle.
we're the we're the big guns. But yeah, no, I think the games that you guys listed, with the best one I definitely think was the Michigan one because when you have those in-state those rivalries, like those are always are gonna matter much. You can lose all your games, but if you beat your rival, it's a win in some people's books. And then again, like, the worst loss being that Cinderella lost to Indiana. That was actually one of like the first full Indiana games I've watched again because
Yeah.
like I didn't want to watch Indiana play lower level teams, but like I was like, hey, Ohio State, Indiana coming out of you know coming from the dead to be where they are. I was like, hey, this would be a very good game. So
Yeah.
no, that was definitely like their worst loss because again, it as you alluded, Aaron, it kind of led to any momentum they had to doing a repeat. So.
Mhm.
Exposed a lot of holes for that one for them for sure. All right, last topic for Ohio State: portal and preparation for the future. I think we hit the big nail on the head with the offensive coordinator, but let's just talk about the team in terms of roster makeup and stuff. It's been a revolving door, in Columbus. A lot of people going out, a lot of people coming in. So far, Ohio State has lost 31 players to the transfer portal. We got Tegra Shabola, and Quincy Porter, another 5-star recruit. They're gone, but they've had an influx in too. They had a DB from Georgia go up there. They Ryan Day is really focused on the trenches. That was a big flaw for them this year. They recently added a player named Washington. He's from Dartmouth, so he's going up to the Ivy League to get his folks. But yeah, and then for looking forward to next year, Julian saying he's going to have Jeremiah Smith, he's going to have Bo Jackson, like you mentioned. He really came onto the scene this year. But yeah,
Mhm.
he's really trying to fix up those areas where they were lacking, and so I think he's done a pretty good job. I gave him a B minus. No big splashes this time around. But with all of those grades put together, I'm giving them a final grade of B plus. Anybody disagree with that grade of a B plus for Ohio State?
Think I'm
No, I
good
think
there.
it's I think it's pretty good. You hit the nail on the head there. I am interested to see how they address their defense because again, like the defense being as good as they were, right?
Yeah,
And kind of as you alluded to, them going into I'm a firm believer of like if you want to have a good team, the trenches is where you stay at. Defensive line,
for
O
sure.
line.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that's something that, and I think it shows in their portal pickups. But when you lose a safety like Caleb Downs, like that's like,
He
and
was
again, he's
almost
going to
another
the league.
defensive lineman. He was almost another defensive lineman.
When you lose a safety like Caleb Downs, like that's a big like loss. But again, like I have firm belief in in just their defensive scheme and structure that like they'll get that addressed. So yeah, all in agreement with that. But definitely interesting to see how they again address all the key defensive guys that are going to go to the league next year.
Yeah. Now,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I just realized now they have two former NFL head coaches or not head coaches, but NFL talent as offensive and defensive coordinator.
And
Mhm.
look,
Um,
that says something.
Yeah. Let's move on
Yeah.
to Tennessee. Yeah, so I'll get started with Tennessee. The 2025 season for the Volunteers, you can kind of say it was a tale of two extremes, right? The offense at one point, Aguilar was looking like a Heisman shoe-in, right? It looked like a Ferrari, and the defense looked like a Honda that wasn't running anymore. It just wasn't the defense was not what we were used to seeing out of Tennessee. So while Josh Heupel continues to win the entertainment battle, put on a great show, the stadium is rocking all the time. The 8-5 finish really left Rocky Top feeling like they missed a massive opportunity in this expanded playoff era. So Aaron, why don't you talk about their record and what grade you gave them for that one?
Yep. So they were expected to finish 9-3 this year. You know, with a 43% chance to make the 12-team playoff with that record. actually they finished 8-5 on the year, right? So in the final week of November, they entered in 8-3 and collapsed to Vanderbilt, a very very good team, I should say. I don't know if I want to call it a complete collapse just because of how talented they were, and then they had a disappointing loss to Illinois in the Music City Bowl, right there in their backyard, pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of saw them break down a little bit towards the end of the season. But my theory, what if they had not lost that game to Georgia in overtime?
What if they
Would
had
that
just
have
made that
changed the
field goal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I,
You know,
I think it would. I think it would have gave them more confidence throughout the rest of the season. Um, but yeah, who know what would that have done for Georgia's season if they had lost that one? Right, they might have lost a couple more.
fair, fair. Yeah.
So what's the final grade you gave them on that one?
Yep. So the grade that they're going to get there is C plus. Okay, but not necessarily good, right?
Yeah, Steven,
Yep.
any thoughts on that one?
Not not a big Tennessee guy. I mean, I guess I got to be now, because Georgia Tech plays them this year, this coming
Mm,
up year. So maybe
okay,
it is good that I'm on this podcast and getting you guys take on the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to Tennessee. So
gotcha. Cool.
Filling out that
Uh,
scout report. And
right. Yeah. He's gonna be at the game. Oh, yes, XYZ receiver. Yeah, he's watch out for him. So let's go into coaching. So here we gave a B minus. Josh Heupel, I think he did a good job with what he had. Right, he had a quarterback coming in very late. He knew what he was losing on the defensive side, so he did what he could. He proved that his offensive system is still elite in that regard. But the defensive regression, that's still his. It's on him to he knows it was going to happen, but it's still like it's on him. I would say his offense, his whole grade in general gets a boost because of how good the offense was. I will say, just looking forward, him hiring Jim Knowles away from, I guess he coming from Penn State now. That's a great hire, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that gets shored up for the Volunteers. So yeah, I'll end it there. Any further thoughts on that coaching grade?
Nope, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it may be a good segue, into how their teams did, individually on offense and defense, right?
Yeah.
So the grade we're gonna give them is a B minus, right? And they got a B minus because of those two extremes that you alluded to earlier, right? Juggernaut on offense, they led the SEC in scoring, almost 40 points a game, 510 yards total offense. That has to, go to tipping my cap to Joey Aguilar. He absolutely shocks everyone when
Yeah.
they lost Nico in the transfer portal. They're like, oh my gosh, Tennessee's offense is going to go in the toilet because we got a guy who doesn't know the offense and is coming from a Sunbelt school, spent some time at UCLA, but wow, he threw for over 3,500 yards this year. And then on defense, again, we saw some spurts, but mostly a disaster in terms of their standard. They ranked last in the SEC, and they allowed 30.9 points per game. So that's ranked 112th nationally. Steven, I mean, is there anything on this, statistics list right here that's making you, lick your chops when they come to the flats next year?
I mean, I think when it comes to just like the offense itself and just how many points you're putting up, that's definitely something that is gonna raise bells for me because statistically, I know we're gonna get into it with Georgia Tech. Our defense, had their moments. So Tennessee having the grade that you gave them for their defense definitely is eye opening. And I'll say it'll probably end up being a shootout,
Shootout.
offensively.
That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
All right.
Mash,
Yeah.
what was their best win and worst loss of the season?
Yeah, their best win wasn't that great. It was a 41-34 overtime win against Mississippi State. Mississippi State being one of the worst teams in the SEC, but that's just how the cookie crumbled for them. That game, it featured 8 lead changes, but the Volunteers showed some true grit there. There was a 23-yard pick six by Colton Hood and a clutch stop by Arian Carter. So in a high stress road environment, they got it done. Good for them. The worst
Mhm.
loss I think would be that loss to Vanderbilt. I don't think Vanderbilt's won in a very long time. You lost to your in-state rival at home, and they gave up 45 points to Vanderbilt. Now, uh, Diego Pavia and that Vanderbilt team was very good, but yeah, that's just not a loss the folks in the volunteer state want to see, as all other, opponents considered. So all that considered, I'm gonna give that a C. I think that loss is definitely bringing that average down from their best win, which I don't think was that great. Um, yeah. So how are they looking in the future, considering their portal and their preparation for the future?
Yeah, so not the season they wanted, but we're gonna give them an A for preparation for the future, right? Um, you know, for the secondary overhaul, Jim Knowles, he didn't wait to start recruiting. They've already, landed 20 portal commits, including a stacked secondary. We talked about how their defense is a weakness, so they're already working towards those weaknesses and improving. Um, QB room with Aguilar potentially departing. I think he's waiting on his eligibility hearing coming up in
Mhm.
February. They're gonna have a wide open battle between Jake Merkenlinger and George McIntyre. So it's gonna be interesting to see who's gonna lead that team on offense and who's gonna be able to step up and fill those big shoes if Aguilar's gone. And again, for that defense, they adjusted. They fired the defensive staff and the strength coach. So Heupel, he's signaling 2026 is going to be playoff or bust. Um, the downfall, they lost about 28 players to the portal, but they replaced them with what seems to be higher upside talent in areas that failed them in 2025. Um, Overall, they're preparing well for the future, but with what we've seen this season and how they perform, we're going to give them a final grade total for report card a C plus.
Any thoughts, Steven?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the one, yeah, I may not watch a lot of Tennessee football, but again, just me keeping my ears to the ground when it comes to just the portal in general. When you're able to keep a quarterback like Joey, you know, for the yards that he's thrown, that's no small feat. So any school that's able to do that, I'm always going to tip my cap off to them,
Yeah.
right? Because especially given what went down last year, and losing your top quarterback to the portal,
Yeah.
being able to keep your current star is always going to be good. And from what I've seen, just in the various portal, because if you look at my Instagram, I follow a lot of portal Instagrams that give you news on, oh, this player is moving to this school.
Yeah.
I saw a good bit of nothing but defensive guys, honestly, the ones
Yeah.
that they highlighted going into going to Tennessee. So yeah, I'll be in agreement with the grade you gave them because they again are addressing not knowing how bad their defense was and seeing who they got in the portal. I think they did a good job in addressing what needs to be to be addressed.
Perfect. Great.
Fair.
Yeah. I like the C plus. All right. Money time. Steven, let's talk about Georgia Tech. do you
Let's
want to
talk
give us
about it.
an
Let's
do you
talk.
want to give us do you want to give us an introduction to the 2025 Georgia Tech season?
Uh, yeah. For those who don't know, Georgia Tech. We've had our ups and downs. I think our season in summary was one that had its highs and then of course had its lows. But that being said, I have a very positive outlook into the 2026 season. Even though we've lost some key talent, both to the portal and just to after you have a quarterback that plays for 7 years in college football, you can't give him that 8th year. I think we are locked, loaded, and reloaded, both from a player standpoint and then also from a coaching standpoint. We have a new same head coach, Brett Keys, and Keys I trust. Same head coach, but we've kind of added on with the new OC and the new defensive coordinator. So I think the sky's the limit with Georgia Tech. I think our our schedule allows for that, and I'm looking forward to the new season.
Awesome. Appreciate
Nice.
that. Yeah. This year, Georgia Tech, at one point, they were the talk of the nation. Haynes King, King him. What were you doing at the game? King him. Yes,
Consistency, yeah,
sir. They were
the
sitting at 8-0 at one point, ranked number 7 in the country. I was really looking forward
yeah.
to that top 10 UGA Georgia Tech game. Did not happen that way. Maybe next year. But even after that 8-0, a November skid turned a potential playoff run into a what if story, right? So, Aaron, why don't you talk to us about what their expected record was, and what their actual record ended up being?
Absolutely. So you got to take this, you guys, you got to remember the expected record was projected at the beginning of the season. People expected Georgia Tech to have just another regular, mid-season. 7-5 is what most people expected, but nobody saw them as like this top 10 contender in October. So when that actual record came, and they had a 9-4 record and 8-0 up until October, it kind of shocked the country. So despite losing those 4 of the last 5 games, I'd say they had a pretty solid year. They beat expectations and they won some pretty solid games. So we're gonna give them an A- here.
Stephen, at what point during the season were you like, oh, this is special? Something special is going on here.
I'll be honest. It would be the Clemson game.
Mhm.
Um, I could tell you, I remember exactly where I was. I took my family down to Minneapolis because we were gonna go watch the Falcons game that weekend. It's the Falcons. We had uh, 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 you know, a lot of high expectations. Second year, with our head coach. I was like, you know what, it will be a good opportunity. To also, it's Saturday, beginning of the Sunday. Let me go watch my Yellow Jackets. We're playing Clemson, and of course, I found a bar full of Clemson fans.
Oh,
And I
perfect.
came to the game saying like this is the game that we like, and I was telling everybody that this is the game. Again, my brother and my younger sister went to UGA, so it's always going to be a topic of discussion. But when it comes to Georgia Tech, told everybody, hey, look, tune into that Clemson game. Like we're about to shock the world and beat Clemson. They're playing at home, and the game went down to the wire. There's a lot of back and forth, but that field goal, is what sealed it for us. And that to me was when I was like, okay, this team is can do something special because again, our schedule at that point between Clemson and Georgia, like the teams that were in between, like were beatable, right?
Hmm.
Clemson going into the season, I felt like Clemson was very overhyped. For reasons that there's not enough time in this podcast that we can to discuss. But I think they were overhyped, and the scoreboard showed that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with your Clemson take. We're going to talk about that game specifically in a little bit. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's talk about coaching real quick. So we gave a B plus. Brent Key. I mean, I know you're very high on him. I'm very high on him. I think he's doing great for Georgia Tech. He's officially kind of restored a culture there at Georgia Tech that we haven't seen for the last couple of coaches. He has the Jackets playing big boy football, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, that was evidenced by that 8-0 start, and a very monumental win against Clemson that kind of dictated what the rest of the season is going to look like. End of the season did kind of fade, like I mentioned, but he responded aggressively. I think he's replaced key staff members who have left for other schools. He has shown that he is not settling for a good 9-win, season. So B plus here, Stephen, all inclusive, like coaching replacements and all that, and how they did this year. You okay with the B plus or something different?
I'm very hard on myself, so I'm going to be hard on my team. I would give it just a B, and I say
Okay.
that not because I don't believe in what Brett Keys is doing, but when you lose well, we had to get rid of our defensive coordinator because we needed a better one.
Oh, y'all had a
But
defensive
when you
coordinator?
replace, huh?
Y'all had a defensive
Say again?
coordinator? Did y'all have a
I
defensive
mean,
coordinator?
And that's what you got jokes. It was enough to make the game close to UGA, but
Okay.
we'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, when you replace a defensive coordinator as well as an offensive coordinator, it gives a lot of like questions as to like how's the offense going to be, and especially when you throw in, and now we have a quarterback battle. We have to figure out who's going to be our quarterback.
Mhm.
It's still up for debate. And on top of that, while I do have a lot of faith in Brett Keys and who he's bringing on, it just has to, the verdict is out as to like who and how those coaches will adjust. Now, I will say I do believe that those coaches will adjust well, right? Because I think for our defensive corner we have Jason, I forget his last name, but he was a defensive assistant for Georgia Tech like a couple years back, did a couple stints and is coming back. So, and then you have George Gotti, offensive coordinator, former quarterback for the Jackets, played with Brett Keys. So again, he's bringing, and what I like about what Brett Keys is doing is he's bringing guys who genuinely care about the school, whether it be like, hey, they coached there or they went here. So, when you bring guys that actually give a damn about what they're doing, they're gonna take each game seriously. They're gonna prep correctly, and I think the sky's the limit when you have a group of guys who are all working as one to one common goal. Because again, they all scream to hell with Georgia, so it's in their blood.
Nice. Nice. Aaron,
Yeah.
how did the offense and defense do this year?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Stephen. Offense, amazing. One of the most efficient units in the country, led by Haynes King. Finished
Nice.
top 10 in Heisman voting. All in all, with my bias being a Georgia fan, he has to be one of like the most determined guys that I've seen, from last year to this year, just working to try to be better and the best. So got to tip my cap to a guy like that who probably carried this team on offense in a couple games this season, right? So it's going to be hard to replace somebody like him who was just the engine of this offense. And he led the ACC in completion percentage at 69.3%. The Achilles heel on the other side, the latter topic is the defense, right? After, a bend no break start, they started to fall apart. We saw in games like North Carolina State, they nearly gave up 600 yards and they struggled to honestly stop a lot of teams in the final month. Ultimately, they ranked 107th nationally in yards allowed per game. I think that's still better than Tennessee, but that's not
Barely.
where you want to be.
Barely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That defense definitely showed up against Georgia, but I wouldn't even consider that their worst loss. Let's go into that topic here. So their best win, I think it was that 24-21 win against Clemson. Aaron and I, we were there at Georgia Tech. That was a very fun game to
Yeah,
watch.
you
It was
did. You did text me. It just hit me that you did text me, and I
Oh,
was
I was hanging out
literally
with Haynes
at.
King. We were hanging out on the field with Haynes King right after the game, man. It was great.
Right.
I bet so.
Yeah, it was great. But we talked about that Clemson game. That worst loss has to be that 42-28 game against Pittsburgh. They still had a 9-1 record, chance to clinch the ACC, go to the playoffs, all that sort of stuff. They really laid an egg. They fell behind 28-0 pretty early, and they fumbled all that away. Steven, just real quickly, what were your thoughts about that game at that point? Sorry to pick on you at your lowest moment.
No, no. I mean, I think the Pittsburgh loss did hurt because again, like we had an opportunity to right our wrongs, but I think in my opinion, the worst loss was the NC State
Okay.
loss. I think the
That was the first
snowball
loss. That was the
of
first. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, exactly. I think the snowball effect of the NC State loss then lead into I think we played Boston College next. Even though we did beat Boston College, like Boston College only won one game, and we were like neck and neck with
Yeah.
Boston College. So like it didn't look good going to the Pittsburgh game. So when the Pittsburgh game started the way it did, I was like, okay, like this defense is like, they are completely falling apart. So, while the Pittsburgh game did sting, I think the NC State game was what really sent us down the
Rabbit hole.
down the hole that we were in. Because as Aaron mentioned, like we made that quarterback look like a Heisman candidate. And he is good,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I think he's gonna make a big splash in the ACC next year. But 600 yards is crazy. It was their homecoming. I have friends who went to NC State. I was texting them. I was like, "Hey, sorry to ruin your homecoming." And let's say that I got a lot of messages back about like, wait, what was that again? So
Oh,
yeah,
dang.
I would only change the NC State to be the worst loss. Maybe not points wise, but when our
The whole season in general.
legs take from under us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll give that category a B plus for Georgia Tech. Aaron, talk to us about the future of that what do they call it? The school on North Ave, or what do they call it? The trade school on North Ave.
Yeah, I mean the future is still looking bright for Georgia Tech. They've mastered the art of bringing, Georgia kids back home. They landed 19 transfers for the 2026 cycle. A big name, Justice Haynes. He's going to make a lot of noise, and keep that run game that Georgia Tech has pretty dominant. Quarterback transition. That's going to be the interesting thing. With Haynes King graduating, Alberto Mendoza. You may know his bigger brother, right? Is he going to be able to fill the shoes that his big brother has, provided? Is he going to be that household name? Georgia Tech believes so. They paid him the money, and he is now in the flats, right?
I've got a question. How did
Mhm.
Alberto Mendoza make a decision so fast? It's almost like he knew where he was going before he entered the portal. How did that happen?
Hey, what state did they play in the week before? I think
The Peach
wasn't
Bowl.
the
Oh, the
Trees
Peach
Neck?
Bowl. That's got it.
The Beach Bowl. It's
He was
hey,
hanging out in
look,
Atlanta. He was hanging out in Magic
he
City.
was
I was like, I
he,
can go to Georgia Tech. I could see myself going here. Got it. Got it.
hey, Haynes King just said, "Hey, look,
But what
this
did
could be you."
they were talking? Uh-oh.
Who
Did you
knows?
just admit to tampering? All right, let's move on. All right, let's move on. Gotcha.
Yep. So all in all, with the bright future they have, we gave them an A- there, and then they ended the season with a final grade of a B+. So not too shabby, if I must say so myself.
Steven, final thoughts on that final grade.
Hey, look, I am very big on that. So I think the grades given are well deserved. I'm a big fan of just the way Brett Keys goes about the transfer portal, right? I know you mentioned like some of the bigger names like a Justice Hayes, like a Alberto Mendoza, but if you remember what I said earlier, like a lot of his early picks were like trench players, like defensive linemen, offensive linemen. And
Trenches.
given that Brett Keys is an offensive lineman at heart, he understands that, with all the changes, we did lose some skill guys to the portal, not gonna throw out names here, but the school in Athens did get one of our wide
Wide receiver.
receivers, but
Yeah.
it is where it is. But he as in Brett Keys did a good job of just kind of reloading. I think he wants to run the ball, right? I know a lot of people are going to be big on Justice Hayes, and Justice Hayes undoubtedly is a great pickup. Like I know we talked about the Ohio State game, but in my opinion, I'm like, what if Justice Hayes was playing that game? Like does it change the outcome of it? Because he was on a terror before he got hurt. Like, he's averaging like over 7 yards a carry. Like if you look up any you guys can fact check me here, because I did look this up. You pull up his highlight from last year, he has so many runs of over like 50 plus yards.
Yep.
It's actually crazy. So definitely looking forward to how our new OC is going to utilize him. Not to mention, for some reason we do, if you have a first or last name is as Haynes, like you are, automatically a jacket. We have, uh, you know,
Justice Haynes,
Justice
Jamal
Hayes. We have
Haynes.
Jamal Haynes, who's a running back that just who just declared for the draft. We got Haynes King. So Justice Haynes coming in was
Will fit right in.
was almost fit right in, and then like I think he's really going to match up well with an unsung hero that nobody really talks about, but Malachi Hosley. He was this, we had a good two running back tandem with him and Jamal Haynes last year. and I think that him and Justice Hayes will tear it up. Where like we're not going to be abusing one running back. So mix that in with Alberto Mendoza. I think we're gonna have a good. I'm looking forward. This will be the one. Actually, be one of the first years that I tune into the spring game. I tend to
Nice.
just let it play out, and then
Dive into it later.
uh, uh see who we get at the end. But I kind of want to see what these new guys have in store, because we have, again, there's a lot of guys who got in the portal. I'm looking forward to seeing how they pan out and who's gonna be the quarterback, because everybody says Alberto Mendoza, but who knows?
Gotcha.
It's very true.
No,
Very
it's gonna be Alberto. We paying too much money. You don't pay that money.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
guys, I appreciate everybody's time today.
Steven, we just want to thank you for joining the show today, man. It's refreshing to get a holistic view of a team, and get some in-depth knowledge, because we don't always have the time to just get the in-depth knowledge of teams, or understand at a holistic view of what's going on. So
Yeah.
I kind of like this, bringing a fan on segment. Yeah.
Like this format. Steven, since you were a guest, you want to plug your socials? Anybody for anybody you want people to follow you, or if you don't want people to follow you, then just say forget
No,
it.
I mean, they can follow me. A lot of my content is just going to be working out content and being a father. But Stephen O'Connell, you can follow me at SoCala3. That is SOKALA with the number 3. I'm happy to be here. If you guys ever need me to give an unbiased opinion of Georgia, I'm your guy.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. We'll have you and your brother on. Appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys watching. This has been another episode of First and Short. Thank you.